of set the stage, I'd like to point to some of the great insights we've heard throughout the day about the life sciences and healthcare being one of the grand challenges for AI to really make a real world positive impact in our society. And I think the reason for that is, we're all humans. Health touches each and every one of us. And, I like to think of what is the guiding vision that we're working towards? What is that North Star? And you can think of it perhaps as a vision of a disease-free future, where we move from the ability to not only personalize medicine, but to also personalize health for each individual. And one thing that I think is particularly unique about this space is that it's extremely multi-scale. To reason about biology and to deploy it in the clinic, in the healthcare setting, we have to go from the level of individual biomolecules all the way up to the patient, to how the patient fits into society and culture, and how are the systems from the healthcare perspective that enable this deployment. So with that, I'd like to start with you, Eric, in terms of some insights on what is top of mind for you in terms of thinking about AI for the life sciences and in our ability to reason and design new biomolecules or even drugs.
Oh, thank you for the question. You must have read my paper about multi-scale foundation models for AI-driven digital organisms, didn't you? Because you mentioned about AI and biology being multi-scale. Exactly, that's the problem. Look at the field of biology. It's so siloed. You have a department of molecular biology. You then have a department of cell biology. You then have a department of maybe microbiology. And why is that? Because data are collected in a single thing slice, and then you study only that. And that is not very useful in building a holistic picture about biology. And biology is the foundation of medicine. In order to cure a disease, you have to know the whole thing. It's not just about designing a piece of drug or a structured protein structure. The protein has to function in a cellular environment. The protein also has to be expressed at the right time, in the right place, which is controlled by the regulatory sequences in the DNA. Therefore, to have a truly useful and informative model, you need to take care of all these scales. Maybe I should stop here just to open the conversation from all the experts here.
Yeah, especially I think how you now bring it back to the patient level. So Anca and Joan, what are your insights in terms of what's missing currently between, bridging the gap between this life sciences research that Eric described and what is pressing in the clinical context?
Well, so I think it's extremely important to work together. So companies and academia, they have to build really a bridge and to work together. Because, sometimes in the academia, we have a lot of nice ideas and we have a lot of nice research and we publish in journals with very high impact factor, but actually it's just a paper or it's just an information in a computer, and it's not really helpful to treat the patients or to change an important treatment strategy. But if we work together with the companies, then they will understand our needs, and we will also understand what is possible to be done, to be implemented for the treatment of the patients. And I'm very proud, and I can give this as an example, that in Freiburg, at the University of Freiburg, we were able to convince Siemens Healthineers to come to us in our hospital. And this is a unique concept in which Siemens Healthineers works together with us in a technology innovation lab, and we develop the new strategies for the treatment of cancer together with people from this company. So that means we understand what is possible to be done in the future, what is possible to be catch from the companies, and they will understand which are really the needs of the doctors. And I think this is extremely important also in the technology. I work with radiation therapists, I work with imaging, with technology, but I think this is also important if we develop drugs.
I guess I would follow on with what both saying, but particularly what Eric said about the siloed. We're very siloed in medicine, and we're also very siloed in the research. And I think AI is going to give us more of the capability to bridge those silos, because we need to start from the fundamental biology of the cell to understand the disease processes. But when we look on the patient side, we need to be able to bring together the genomic data, the proteomic data, the imaging data, the other lab data, and integrate that together and use this sort of technology to help inform the caregiver directly with the latest and greatest data on their particular patient. And we need to be able to bridge into the latest of research, because often the providers are delayed in understanding even the possibilities, and that means people's lives. So I think these are some of the capabilities that are going to open for us.
I really loved what you had to say in terms of breaking down the silo between the fundamental research and the clinical providers that are actually translating that into practice. So Daniel, I know you've done a lot of amazing work in kind of integrating the different perspectives that bridge this, interface between tech and healthcare. I'm wondering if you could please comment on, some of the interventions that you've seen most effective at bridging those divides and breaking down those silos.
Well, I think a lot of the theme is that the future of health and medicine is multimodal. It's not just about AI or data or sensors or omics. It's putting them together. And just like biology, healthcare is very siloed. I'm an oncologist, you're doing infectious disease or radiation oncology. The opportunity is to let clinicians, researchers see where the puck is going to go and connect all these dots and solve for not just sick care, but healthcare. And I think the ultimate potential on the theme here of AI to revolutionize digital health is to let everybody interact, not with their data, but the actionable insights to be more proactive and predictive. That can then tie into therapies. But we need to sort of bring technologists, patients, clinicians, health systems together to reimagine this future, and AI and digital health is sort of this new forum to catalyze that.
Yeah, I love that. I think there are some really common themes coming up across levels. One being of integration, interdisciplinarity, and collaboration, but also this recurrent theme of multimodality, right? We've clearly set the stage that biology and healthcare is inherently a multimodal field. And I think one of the things that's most exciting is that it presents us the opportunity for the development of new AI that can reason about these multiple modalities simultaneously. So with that, Peter, I know you lead amazing efforts in terms of applied research at Google and heading up teams working on Gemini. What do you see as some of the greatest opportunities in new multimodal models that could be potentially brought to this domain?
That's a great question. There's a few opportunities that have really stood out, and one of the things that I look for as I'm thinking about these is what is the risk profile and what's the benefit. And so I think one of the simplest opportunities we were talking about before is data extraction and normalization. When I was back in high school, I worked in a cancer lab, and what that really meant was I sat in the basement working through a whole bunch of different charts of 20 years of PSA records trying to figure out what to do for prostate care. And that now is something I think is a great opportunity for any of these multimodal models in looking at scans, looking at images, and trying to normalize data in a way that's anonymized, but also is accessible to many people to conduct further research on.
Do you see this as, I guess this is a question for the whole panel, ultimately, what do you see as this reciprocity between, let's say, the tech side and the healthcare side? If you could each maybe comment briefly on that, in terms of what you envision for an ideal working scenario between tech and the healthcare sector. Maybe starting with Anca.
Well, so I mentioned, I think it's very important that technology and companies work together with academia. And I think an important step would be really to reduce bureaucracy. So it's really a big issue. If you want to start to work with a company, you need a lot of lawyers, a lot of time, and a lot of money to realize your goal. So I think this is a very important topic. I think we have to think about this, and I think we should reduce bureaucracy. We should also convince the patients that they have to participate to the trial. So the concept of data safety is for the patients extremely important on one side, but on the other side, if you do not have data, we are not able to develop something, and especially if you speak about AI, we need a lot of data, so we can really change treatment strategies, but based on many, many data. And I think the spirit of the patients, it's not enough developed in this direction, and I think as a doctor we have to explain the patients, we have to convince the patients that they have to work with us, and for sure, everything should be anonymized, and we have to respect the privacy, but we need the data from the patients to make research.
I would definitely second all of that. When I put my hat on from leading transformation at Boston Children's Hospital, the other piece of a lot of what I do is with Virtue Foundation, an NGO I helped co-found 20 years ago. And that's looking at the low and middle income country markets. And I think it's really important that AI offers us a very large opportunity to leapfrog and escalate and get care to patients that historically have been out of the marketplace. And we've used AI to build vfmatch.org, so we have, and Databricks is a partner, so I was happy to see Arsalan here, we spoke earlier, to be able to identify the mini knowledge graphs around all those healthcare NGOs and hospitals and identify the medical deserts, make that known, and get the right care to the right place. And I think this is another piece of AI. We have our problems when we look at it being in a big US Harvard hospital, and it is the bureaucracy, and it is the data and the patients. But there's this huge untapped need, about 143 million people not getting surgery every year, that AI will help us to really efficiently help millions of lives.
So I like to start the discussion from a question about what to expect from AI, in biology. Many people say AI is going to make the data analysis faster. For example, in the case of AlphaFold, you solve the protein structure a lot faster than X-ray crystallography and so forth. That's certainly a valuable input, but I do see something bigger than that. Just like what we see, ChatGPT is really disrupting the whole space of human-machine interaction and the communication. There is a potential and maybe even a need for a paradigm shift in biology and also in medicine. Look at how we do biology right now. We rely on test tubes and wet lab experiments and all that as a tool for search. We actually, are really betting on our luck to find something interesting in our wet lab experiments, which is very slow, very expensive, and also very dangerous. Imagine you drop your test tube on the floor, something will go away, right? That's not the case for many other industries. If you do a car or aircraft design, if you do a semiconductor chip design, you spend majority of your effort, maybe 90%, in the discovery and in the experimentation, and also in the design, in a digital space. And then you only go physical in the last mile, which is very effective. In biology and in medicine, maybe 5 to 10% of the energy, for example, take drug design as an example, is used actually for drug design and also discovery. Then the other 90% is on clinical trial, validation, and all that. Why so? There isn't actually an obvious reason. In fact, I would say AI may provide an opportunity to revisit this whole workflow in biology and in medicine. Why not doing the validation, doing the trial in a digital environment if you are able to simulate all the possibilities in the living organism, right? So it is actually out of that vision we actually formed the company GenBio, which is to exactly realize the idea about virtual cell. People have talked about these days, a digital organism. I think there's a huge potential. We can ask more out of AI from large data and multimodal data, as you mentioned.
Not just the digital twin of the cell, but the digital twin of the human. I mean, we have a tremendous opportunity to reimagine healthcare around the planet, and AI and digital are the new tools to go from intermittent, reactive, sick care, siloed in the physical sense, to one that's continuous, proactive, anytime, anywhere, with user interfaces that are sort of based on the age, culture, language, personality types. You're not getting a drug and reading the 20-page insert that talks to you. It can be your real-time coach, the Gemini coach, the Microsoft coach, the ChatGPT that's honed to your individual personality type, and then you're able to potentially share that data, like the Google Maps or Ways of Health, where we're building these maps, so we're taking healthcare journeys that are informed by others. So I think a charge for everybody in this room, even those outside of traditional healthcare, is to help us reimagine that, not have a failure of imagination, because the next decade will make the last decade look slow. I chair a platform called Next Med Health, and the challenge and opportunity is to bring all sorts of players together to sort of tell the story and then build that collaboratively, and we have tremendous opportunity. At the same time, the culture of medicine is very incremental, and the workflow and the incentive models and the regulatory are often barriers. So we need to sometimes maybe find new places, whether it's Mongolia or other locations to show what's possible.
I agree with what the rest of the panel said 100%. What Anca mentioned about physicians as coaches or physicians as advocates for the technology with the patient base really jumps out. What Eric said about reimagining the workflows really jumps out. So I run an applied research team, which means focused on filling the gap between research and production. And one of the best ways that we're able to do that is to talk to the experts, to talk to the collaborators, to reimagine the workflows, see what are the places where today we can make use of AI, what are the places we should be making use of AI tomorrow, and then what do things look like in 3 or 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I really love everything that has been shared, and we all painted a vision of kind of the grand technological challenges that we each see in the domains and the sort of capacities that we interface with healthcare. Joan and Eric, you particularly pointed out, this problem of identification and reimagining the search process, whether that's for providing healthcare or the scientific, biological discovery pipeline itself. I'm curious, what's your take on deployment in terms of how we can actually deliver these technologies to whether, that's the clinical providers around the world or the biotech and pharmaceutical companies that could have their experimental workflows accelerated by the advent of this AI?
I'll take it at least from the global health front. We have built a platform to enterprise grade. Databricks, DataRobot, and Carto are partners so that it could be built as a usable tool. For our own use cases, we're using it to match physicians with their expertise to the medical deserts, those locations where there's large populations of patients who actually need their specialized care, and hooking them up with the people on the ground that they can uplift in terms of training. So it's a real use of this AI-enabled data. The other things that we're seeing with this is that we can start to derive insights. We're creating optimizations within the medical deserts of where do you build the next healthcare facility, or where do you start the new cardiac surgery service or neurosurgical service, or bring ophthalmology to a facility somewhere in Mongolia or somewhere in Ghana. So you reshape that medical desert, and you're continuously running this data, so you're seeing the effect of the change. The other piece of reshaping is access, and I'll give a use case example we've done in northern Ghana with tricycle ambulances. That the roads wash out, the transport networks are difficult, and we can use all this geospatial data coupled with our foundational data to be able to reshape the routes and optimize where we put the tricycle ambulances. And we can use the sensors and the geospatial data to enable that. That's 60% of those rides are women who are delivering babies. So we're reducing maternal and child mortality. This is the impact of this type of technology. We're also seeing governments want to harness it. They want to leapfrog. In Mongolia, there's e-Mongolia. Everybody has their health record on their cell phone. You can start to plug into a MedGemini and work with providers on the ground in areas where it's hard to get to healthcare. I think that governments in these countries really want to partner and work. They don't have the same constraints, maybe, and factions that we might have in the countries that we live in. So there's real opportunity to reshape. And industry. I think industry and new ways of looking at things, bringing therapies to new patients are opened up by having access to this type of information.
Yeah, I want to add a few points on top of what has been said. Recently there has been a tsunami of papers, reporting creations of new foundation models of different modalities of biology, like DNA, RNA, cell model, and so forth. Other than a few models, like the AlphaFold, most of them are not actually available for people to play. It's basically a piece of paper and then some code. I think, we see good examples in the LLM world where either your open API or your open weights or your open source, it creates a community that people can actually use it. And then, add their own experiences and data on top of it. I think one thing that's going to happen, hopefully, in the next few years is that in biology, people will be going closer to, industrial level software engineering and offering and serving, so that not just we publish a piece of code or write a paper, but also you will be expected to also serve your model and also to be able to collaborate across the board, with data provider, with maybe data from other modalities to start integrating these models. Because one single model isn't going to answer the whole question in biology, but if you put models together, either within one company like we did in GenBio or across institutions, that's probably going to change the landscape of AI for biological research.
Absolutely, and being in that field myself, I could not agree more with the need for reproducibility and high-grade interfaces that the community can really bring into practice. So in the remaining couple of minutes, I want to make it very concrete and very real for our audience, and pose the question to you of what is the one, if you had to pick one use case or grand medical or biological challenge that you're most passionate about, and from an impact perspective, from a discovery perspective, and if you could each comment briefly on that, I think that would be great to close out the discussion. And maybe starting with you, Peter.
I think I might answer a related question, if that's okay, given my background in technology. But one of the biggest things I think we can do in the medical space and in many different spaces in applying AI is come up with many of the other presenters today have talked about, which is strong, well-understood evaluation sets. And that lets you know about the performance and the efficacy of the model before you put it into production. I think that would help to enable a lot of the use cases that you all described. And so maybe I'll issue a challenge to folks in the room. If you're interested in using AI in a space like healthcare, I think one of the best things you can do is helping to build a strong and well-understood evaluation set to test against.
I think what's most exciting is the option now to really democratize health access and equity. A small example, Andrew Ng was here earlier. I'm on the board of a company we helped start called Jivi.ai in India, which is already an amazing multi-LLM model that gives the bottom billion there access to a personal clinician, essentially. Has Ayurvedic medicine. You can talk to it in any language, and that's already today. So this idea that almost everyone can do self-health and own their own data and choose to share it and connect the dots to build a better healthcare system for all is what's most opportune today.
What gets me most excited is perhaps maybe the first steps toward the AI-driven digital organism is to create a virtual cell in which you can really replicate any disease scenarios, any lesions, any injuries to the cell in silico, so that when you crisp out cells or the genes or apply a compound or medicine, you don't have to go to the wet lab. You can basically, just like we do in prompting for a large language model, prompt the cell model so that you see the outcome from that.
For me, now that with Virtue Foundation that we've mapped the medical deserts real time, so we know the capacity in care, we're now working on the real-time predictive models of disease burden by disease and by specialty, so that you can also visualize that real time and see the true gap to be able to really optimally deliver.
So I think the concept of omics close to the concept of AI. So to extract a lot of data, biological data, proteomics, genomics, to extract data from the imaging, radiomics, and using AI to put all this data together to create a very specific diagnosis, and to forget about the treatment one size fits all, to develop a really very, very specific, biological specific treatment strategy.
Amazing and very inspiring. I think we covered a breadth of perspectives and topics. Thank you all so much for your time and contributions. Thank you all.